Brothers and sisters-in-law, I'm Brother Tupea. I work in the ward as an advisor to the deacons. Sometimes it's just deacon, so and what wonderful deacons we do have. I've probably been in the youth as long as Ryan's been alive. I've always been kind of confused by it. I always thought it was a calling for people that so they can hang out with their sons. So it's been pretty fun. The purpose of my talk today will be, a lot of it will go to the youth. So if you're in between the ages of 1 and 92, this is probably for you. It's going to be a little tough. I'm reminded of a Greek philosopher who said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man." 28 years ago, I stood at this pulpit, excited for the adventure to serve a mission, to go to Japan. I can tell you that many of the blessings that I have today are a direct effect of that calling. And if you have a chance to go, you should go. My parents recently served a mission, and they called me while they were on their mission and said, "Hey, this missionary work thing is hard." And then I laughed. Yeah, it is. So let's talk a little bit about Ryan's call and how it came about, or comes about. Like many organizations, the church needs to do a few things to make it run well. So I want to take this in terms of 3 things. So recruiting, positioning, and when I speak of positioning, I mean getting the right people on the bus and getting them in the right seats, and then equipping, right? So equipping them with the right tools so that they can do the job. Let's touch on recruiting. First of all, D&C 4:3 says, if you have desires to serve God, you're called to the work. And verse 5, and faith, hope, charity, and love with an eye single to the glory of God qualify him or her for the work. Ryan has answered the call to serve. What is interesting, I think what's funny is, I don't know, and this is a shout out to Brother K. There is a coach called Lou Holtz, and he said, I've had good players and I've had bad players. But I've noticed when I've got good players, I'm a really good coach. So for us, a lot of the time, we want to make sure that we have the right people going to do the right thing. And as we saw in D&C 4, there isn't a lot to qualify you for the work, but it is important. In terms of positioning, getting the right people at the right role at the right time, young adults, men and women, are asked to serve missions between the ages of 18 and 25. There are missionaries that go at older ages, either as a couple or as retired people as well, but missions are something that people get called to. The positioning of these young men and young women is not really for the benefit of the church. Now, the church does benefit from it, but I believe it's for the benefit of the individual. President Gordon B. Hinckley said, "One of the great ironies of life is this: he or she that serves almost always benefits more than he or she who is served." Now, there are some friends that may be on video, and a lot of this we do know, but you don't get to select where you go. You don't get to pick. You put in a call that says, "Hey, I'm qualified and I'm able to go." You go through a series of interviews, and then finally, at long last, now it used to be it came in the mail, but now it comes as an email, and you find out where you go. And some of you may have seen Ryan's opening of his mission call, and I know it was a touching moment for me as well as others who have seen it. So for him, his call was to accept the Japan Tokyo North mission. Now what I do want to do in the last minute or so, and give Ryan the remainder of the time, is talk a little bit about equipping. To pivot off of a talk by Elder Randy D. Funk, which was called of him to declare his word as inspiration, is the inspiration for my words today. The missionaries of the church are simply stunning, he says in this talk. And he asks a very important question. He says, how will you receive spiritual power as a missionary to open the doors, inboxes, and hearts of those in the mission where you serve? I think he's asking about equipping. I wanted to use a story that's used in leadership, and it's something that I shared previously with a talk I did with the White Powell High School over the week. And it's about a man named Charlie Plum. He was a fighter pilot in the Vietnam War, one of the Top Gun pilots, in fact, instructors later on. He flew 75 combat missions, and his plane was shot down over Vietnam. And he parachuted into enemy hands, and he was captured and spent 6 years in the Hanoi Hilton. He was there with Senator McCain, so he was there for quite a bit. In the time that he was there, his wife left him. Essentially, he lost much of it, but he did survive the ordeal, and he now speaks on the lessons he learned from that experience. So I just want to share a little snippet of his experience, and I utilize that to explain what I mean by equipping. So Charlie's sitting in a restaurant eating with his wife, and he kind of sees a guy over in the corner who keeps looking at him. And he's like, well, he didn't really recognize the guy. Charlie wasn't sure what was going on, so the guy comes up to him and says, hey, you're Plum. You were a fighter pilot in Vietnam. You were on the USS Kitty Hawk, and then you got shot down. And Charlie, of course, doesn't know who the guy is. Can't figure it out. He's like, I know you know me, but how do I know you? And he's like, oh, you don't know me, but I was a sailor on the USS Kitty Hawk as well. And he's like, oh, really? He goes, yeah, I packed your parachute. Charlie, of course, is stunned and grateful and starts to shake the man's hand. And the man says, well, I guess it worked. And Charlie laughed, it did. In fact, I wouldn't be here today if that parachute didn't work. So for us, when it talked, and luckily Ryan gets to sit out there, so usually I have to look over my shoulder. I want Ryan to know that he's been equipped, that there are so many people that are sitting in this audience or watching this broadcast, that his parents, his siblings, including adopted siblings, thanks for coming, and parents, other parents, there's been aunties and uncles by blood and by friendship, your teachers, some that were thankful to have you and some that were thankful to see you leave. So we've had the whole gamut of it. I know that there are so many lessons. His priesthood leaders, when I think of his scouting experience, his scout leaders are here in Hawaii, Chicago, Alaska, and we're thankful for them, for him being able to achieve his eagle and the ability to do that. I know that his coaches that have coached him from Little League are important. He went back recently to see his teachers. I just want you to know that we feel like we've been giving you that equipment and getting you ready for the ability to serve. And when you go out there, just remember there's a whole team that supports you and loves you. And on the days that you don't feel like this was the best decision, because you have those days where it's really tough and you want to come home, you can't come home till you're done, right? And all of your, like, I don't know what that's about, but and I know you'll be out there, as well as you're going to help others to pack their shoe. So those that you'll meet out in the mission field, treat them good. So I just want to bear my testimony that I know this church is true, and I'm proud of Ryan, and thank Messina for her talk as well. It was interesting. I am one of those guys. I like pranks, so it's always fun. And as you serve out in Japan and in an area that both your mom and I served, I just want you to know that when we were there, we loved the people. And part of it is that, and equipping you with that love, and the love for the gospel is what we hope to have achieved, as well as everybody that has come in touch with your life. And I say these things